6:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news, edited by Lal Malavarachi, assisted by Sanjay, and read by Geethanjali Ramanayaka. The headlines. 65 public institutions with high performance are awarded gold and silver medals. Sri Lanka's foreign reserves have increased to $3.5 billion. Minister Mahinda Amaravira says farmers brought back to the fields highest rice harvest last season. A 7-member committee to probe hospital deaths. The government will adopt new bill to modernize the postal department. Foreign news, UN chief says millions will pay the price of Russia's grain deal exit. In sports cricket, Pakistan trailed by 91 runs on the third day of the first test against Sri Lanka. News in detail. 65 public institutions that displayed a significant high performance during 2019 and 2020 will be awarded gold and silver medals. 15 gold medals and 30 silver medals will be offered each year. The performance of the institutions was measured by the COPE committee. The medals will be awarded today at the Parliament complex. This occasion will be graced by President Ranil Wickremesinghe, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena and Speaker Mahinda Abeyewardena. 833 public institutions were evaluated for their performance, and this program was initiated by the COPE committee in hope of regularizing the performance and financial discipline of the public institutions. State Minister of Finance Shahan Semasinghe says that Sri Lanka's foreign reserves are increased to $3.5 billion and inflation will come down to 7% to 8% by the next month. Sri Lanka is now being set as an example for the international community as a rising country by quickly solving the economic crisis. The minister pointed out that the reason for this was working with strict financial discipline with specific goals. The minister said this while participating in a program held at the Presidential Secretariat recently to inform trade union representatives about local debt optimization. The minister emphasized that the government is ready to accept effective ideas to deal with the proposals of the IMF. He pointed out that it is regrettable that the opposition, which did not enter the platform provided by the Paris Club and other groups to present proposals, only protested. Pointed out that the cabinet is ready to consider proposals submitted by even the opposition groups whenever necessary. State Minister Semasinghe said that it is possible to submit relevant proposals even to the resident representative of the IMF. Agriculture Minister Mahinda Amaravira said that it was able to make the highest rice harvest in the history during the last JUL season. He added that this achievement is an eye-opener to the people who were away from farming and farmland a year ago. The minister said this while attending a special press conference held yesterday at the Colombo Fort Presidential Media Centre. The minister said that the main challenge the country faced a year ago was to bring the farmers who were away from the farmlands back to the farmlands. Farmers are encouraged to cultivate an immediate season instead of current 2 seasons by recognizing modern technology. A big hand is given to the farmers to grow additional crops like cowpea and green gram in the extra season. Aiming at the foreign market, farmers are encouraged to grow many other crops such as bananas, mangoes, green cucumber and avocados. Working to become self-sufficient through maize cultivation, a program is being implemented to enable the farmers to get maize and other products at a high price and at a price that the consumer can afford. Working to keep the prices of ground nuts, green beans, etc. at a reasonable level, he said. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. A 7-member committee has been appointed by the Health Ministry to investigate the deaths that are said to have occurred due to the drug problems in the government hospitals in the past few months. Director of the Medical Research Institute, Dr. Dedunu Dias, has been appointed as the chairman of the committee. Other members of the committee are Professor Chandima Jeevandra, Professor Priyadarshini Galapatti, Dr. Senitha Liyanage, Professor Nethushi Samranayaka, Professor S.S.P. Varnakulu Surya, and Dr. Philip H. Lee. The expert committee will conduct investigations based on several recent deaths in Peradeniya and Kandy teaching hospitals. Mass Media State Minister Shanta Bandara says a bill will be introduced for the modernisation of the Department of Posts to Parliament before the end of this year. Addressing a briefing held at the President's Media Centre, the Minister emphasised that in the backdrop where the current Post Office Ordinance hinders the renovation activities of the post, a decision has been taken to subject it to an immediate amendment, and accordingly 80% of the work has already been completed. And that ends local news for now.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Veda Mahatmya.
The Inland Revenue Department says that it has collected a total tax revenue of 696,946 million rupees for the first half of this year. In comparison, the revenue collected from the income tax during the first half of 2022 amounted to a total of 361,832 million rupees, according to the department. Accordingly, the collected tax revenue of the first half of this year shows a positive growth of 93% compared to last year, the Commissioner General of the IRD said in a statement. And that was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Veda Mahatmya.
On to Watchlight. The Department of Excise says that it has arrested a total of 20,121 individuals during raids carried out across the island during the first 6 months of this year. The arrested include 2,687 females, according to the Excise Department. The relevant apprehensions have been made through raids carried out by 57 excise stations and 5 excise special operations units and the Excise Narcotics Bureau throughout the island, it added. And that came to you in Watchlight. Moving on to world news. In the headlines, UN chief says millions will pay the price of Russia's grain deal exit. Tunisia and EU signed a deal to tackle irregular migration. An Australian sailor and his dog survived 2 months at sea. The UN Secretary General says Russia's decision to exit a grain deal with Ukraine will strike a blow to people in need everywhere. Antonio Guterres says he deeply regrets Russia's confirmation that it will not extend the Black Sea grain export deal, which expires tonight. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Kyiv is prepared to continue the deal even without Russia's participation. Earlier, Russia blamed Ukraine for attacking the Crimea Bridge, which links the occupied peninsula to Russia. Tunisia said the EU have signed a deal to tackle irregular migration, meaning those moving in breach of rules. Tunisia has become the main departure point for migrants trying to cross the Mediterranean to Europe. The EU has been struggling to cope with 72,000 migrants making the journey this year alone, mostly to Italy. The deal includes $118 million to stop smuggling, strengthen borders and return migrants. An Australian sailor who survived 2 months in the Pacific Ocean by eating raw fish and drinking rainwater is stable and very well, a doctor says. Sydney resident Tim Shattuck, 51, and his dog Bella left Mexico for French Polynesia in April, but their boat was damaged by a storm several weeks later. They were rescued by a trawler this week after a helicopter spotted them. The doctor aboard the tuna trawler told the media that the man had normal vital signs. Mr. Shattuck embarked on his more than 6,000-kilometer long voyage from Mexico's city of La Paz, but soon became stranded after his vessel's electronics were cut off by bad weather. Back to the headlines of the world news. UN chief says millions will pay the price of Russia's grain deal exit. Tunisia and the EU signed a deal to tackle irregular migration. An Australian sailor and his dog survived 2 months at sea. And that ends World News.
Development News is brought to you by
Vacancies for women from Deshakti Lanka for housemaids in Kuwait, Oman and Saudi Arabia for ages 23 to 58 years. Contact number 037 7500 500.
More than 3,000 people have visited the artificial beach built in the Colombo port city in the first 2 days since its opening. This is the first artificial beach built in Sri Lanka, and it was opened last Saturday. Visitors can enjoy themselves at the beach free, and they also have the opportunity to use the walking path built within the port city complex. Food stalls with local and foreign cuisine has also been opened to the public in the area, and facilities for swimming and water sports on the artificial beach too are available. And that was Development News.
Vacancies for women from Deshakti Lanka for housekeepers, home cooks, caretakers and home nurses in Kuwait, Oman, Saudi Arabia and Singapore for ages 23 to 57 years. Salaries starting from 156,000 rupees. Interviews with foreign agents are now on. Come whether you have a passport or not. Branches, Colombo, Kurunagala, Anuradhapura and Matara. Contact number 0377 500 500.
On to sports news. Dhananjay De Silva stroked a splendid knock of 122 as Sri Lanka made 312 all out, while Pakistan were 221 for 5 wickets at the close of the second day's play in the first test played at the Galle International Cricket Stadium yesterday. Rain interrupted the game and the umpires called off the play at 5:20 p.m. and decided to start the game at 9:45 a.m. with 98 overs to be bowled today. Pakistan still trailed by 91 runs as they couldn't make a good start yesterday. However, Shahid Shakil 69 in 88 balls with 6 fours and Agha Salman 61 in 84 balls with 6 fours and a 6 put up an unbroken 120-run stand for the 6th wicket, which was the most successful Pakistan partnership, and they hope to continue their innings today with more confidence. And that was sports news.
Go ekak thiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
In business news, the Sri Lankan rupee has depreciated further against the US dollar, according to the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. The rupee has been depreciating since June 6th, and today's buying rate of US dollar is 312.29, while the selling rate hit 327 rupees and 16 cents. And that was business news.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak thiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
And now in economic news.
Sri Lanka's private credit contracted by 88.9 billion rupees in May 2023 from a month earlier, while credit to state enterprises and central bank credit also fell, official data shows. A part of the private credit contraction also came from a fall in dollar loans to the private sector from 550.3 billion rupees to 492.2 billion rupees. Central bank credit contracted by 90 billion rupees to 2,123 billion rupees in May, despite allowing the central bank to collect reserves amid the private credit contraction. The rupee appreciated from 321 to 295 to the US dollar in May. An appreciation of the rupee may also reduce working capital needs as stocks are replaced at lower values. And that was economic news.
Weather report.
Several spells of showers will occur in the western, Sabragamu and northwestern provinces and in the Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and Matara districts. Showers or thunder showers may occur at a few places in the Ua province and in the Ampara, Batticaloa district during the evening or night. Fairly strong winds, about 40 to 45 kilometers per hour, can be expected at times in the western slopes of the Central Hills, northern, north central and northwestern provinces and in the Monragala, Hambantota and Trincomalee districts. And that was the weather report, and prior to concluding this news broadcast, the headlines once again. 65 public institutions with high performance are awarded gold and silver medals. Sri Lanka's foreign reserves have increased to $3.5 billion. Minister Mahinda Amaravira says farmers brought back to the fields highest rice harvest last season. A 7-member committee to probe hospital deaths. The government will adopt new bill to modernize the postal department. Foreign news, UN chief says millions will pay the price of Russia's grain deal exit. In sports, it's cricket. Pakistan trailed by 91 runs on the third day of the first test against Sri Lanka. And with that, we end this news broadcast from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. And handing you back to Saudi Tham this Tuesday morning to keep you in great company. Good morning, Saudi, and it's over to you.
A very good morning to you, Geetanjali. Thank you very much for bringing us the morning news. And let me wish you a safe trip back. And also have yourself a super duper Tuesday. You're tuned to Radio Sri Lanka.